Alright, it's been a while, but I've got something new here. It's the Fryette Power Station. Done a little bit of modification. I added the red volume knob just so I'll know which one does all the damage. Anyways, it's not a whole lot of videos on this thing. Most of them are showing it attenuating loud amps, which it does really, really well. But another thing it functions as is essentially a kind of a standalone tube power amp. 50 watts, one channel, has a integrated effects loop, and it works great with these things. If you have a Kemper or Line 6 Helix or Axe Effects, something like that, this might be worth checking out. It's not the cheapest option, but for what you get, I think it does offer quite a bit of value. It's got the let's see, I've got it in the deluxe rack mount kit, which I will be putting it in a rack along with my power conditioner to carry to shows and things like that. It's a bit heavier than I thought it was, and also a lot bigger than I thought it would be. I thought it would be kind of like the size of my old my Ultimate attenuator that I used to have, but it's a lot bigger. I'll post pictures of the inside of this thing and show you kind of how the tubes and everything are laid out. It's got all Ruby brand tubes, which I'm a huge fan of. It's got two 6L6s and a single 12AX7. I'll be running it with the nitro profile. I've got the cabinet. It's kind of hard to see the little light with the camera, but the cabinet simulation is turned off because I'm running it into my Splon 412, and it's got a couple of mics on there. They're both Scumbags, I think. H75 and M75, I believe. And then be using the Charvel. And also, another new piece of gear, I've got the Bogner Ecstasy Blue Overdrive pedal, which I'm using sort of like a clean boost. I really won't go into too much detail on this because I really feel like there are a ton of videos already out there. But what I will do is when I get my nitro back from our practice area, I'll show you guys kind of how this thing works as a clean boost for an already overdriven amp. I don't think there are a whole lot of videos with that showing off that with the Ecstasy. And for that kind of purpose, I think that this blue pedal works really well. I know that the blue one doesn't really get the love that the red one gets, but I think that's mainly because guys are going after the red one to overdrive a relatively clean amp, which after playing with the red one, I can see how that would be a better pedal for that. But for an already overdriven amp, I think that this one does really well. It doesn't really have a whole lot of gain that it adds in the plexi mode, which is how I run it. If you switch it to the blue mode, it does add quite a bit of gain. But for an already overdriven amp, you really don't need a ton of gain, or at least I don't, for the profile that I use. I have yet to play this through the nitro though, so I'm really getting kind of antsy to hear how that sounds, and I'll be sure to do a video showing that off. Anyways, be using that with the profile today because the Kemper boosts really well, just like a real amp, and flashback delay. All right, this is the Kemper Profiling Amp running into the Fryette Power Station to a Splon 412 with some Scumbag speakers. And I've got the Charvel here. It's got a Motor City FOAU and the little 59 that came with the pickup in the neck position. And this is with the cabinet simulation turned off, no reverb, no nothing, no boost or anything like that. So here we go. the edge mode, which I guess is, it's got the high end and the low end switches kind of to tweak the character just a little bit. Doesn't make a very big difference. Is just enough so that if your amp needs a little something different in either the top end or the low end, it can sort of do a little bit to it. So that was with the treble set to the edge. Now I'm going to go to the bright setting. Actually, so this is the edge, and this is bright. So kind of a little bit different. And this is flat. And you can definitely tell that there was, or at least I could, there was a definite drop off in the top end. So I like it in brighter edge. It really doesn't make too much of a difference to me, because the difference that this makes is just like one or two little twists, little lights on the treble or presence on the actual Kemper, so it's not that big of a deal. The presence, that has a whole lot more effect on the sound, as you could probably hear, and it gets really, really powerful there at the very end. So the depth control now, all the way down. So again, it's kind of like just a little bit of a seasoning to a steak, if you want to use that kind of analogy. It doesn't make a massive difference. It sounded like I lost more top end when I turned the depth up, rather than it blowing up the bottom end. So let's try turning the depth way up, presence way up. So bumping both of those way up, kinda, to me at least, seemed like it put me back where I started before I turned them all the way up. Okay, now I'm going to back the gain down on the profile itself and show you what it sounds like when I hit it with the Bogner Blue pedal. So this is with the gain around 10 o'clock-ish.
Wow.
again. Gain is up to a little past halfway. For the actual boost half of the pedal, I really don't use it a whole lot because it pushes it over the top in terms of gain, in my opinion. A little too much saturation, you lose a little bit of a little too much clarity and definition. But I think if you weren't using a whole lot of gain, like I'll back it back down to around 10 o'clock here. This is with the pedal off. This is pedal on. And now with the boost on. So to gain a little bit back down kind of like that, I think with my old JTM 45 that would probably work out really well. But for the amount of gain that I typically roll with, it's a little too much with that added boost. So just the regular built-in overdrive for me works pretty well. Alright, a little bit of reverb. Reverb is back off and I'm in drop D tuning now. Technically C sharp, but anyways, the gain is at 3 o'clock. Here we go. Who would have thought? I'll show you guys in a clip coming up like in just a second. I'll cut to showing you the back of the unit, how I have it hooked up there. So thanks for checking it out. When I get the nitro, I'll do another one and show you kind of how it works with that thing. But yeah, so far I'm really impressed. I haven't gotten a gig with it yet. That's coming up here in a couple weeks, and I'm really looking forward to it because I've actually been really impressed with this thing on stage with that cheap PV power amp. Surprisingly enough, so throwing a really legit tube amp like this up on stage with it is going to be really cool to kind of hear how that works out. 50 watts obviously is going to be plenty for stage use. But yeah, so far very impressed. Top-notch build quality. I would not expect anything less from Steve and those guys, so really well done in that regard. Price isn't really too bad considering what you know, the 50 and 100 watt stereo power amps by those guys cost. So yeah, that's about all I can say for now. Thanks for checking the video out, and stay tuned for more. See you guys later. Alright, here's what we got. Nothing coming out of the back of the Kemper. I always use the headphone output because it's the most convenient way to send a mono signal out of the thing. I've tried using the effects loop that's built into this for these pedals, and I really can't tell much of a difference between using it with this and with using the Power Station's effects loop. So just for simplicity, I've always just been doing this. So for now, I'll stick with that. I didn't really notice any sort of weird distorting of time-based effects using either method, so it seems like Steve has gotten it kind of figured out with this thing on how to keep the distorting that usually comes with, you know, like reverb and delays and things like that. Once you get the gain really high, if it's getting hit with the preamp signal, it can get distorted and sound kind of gross. But it doesn't do that with this, so I was really happy to see that. Anyways, I've got it labeled just because effects send and effects return is kind of weird in my brain, coming out of coming from like treating this like a power amp, but it basically is just like, you know, if you treat this like a guitar amp, you would have your effects loop send out of the amp, which is what this goes to the pedal board, and then the return comes from the pedal board. So it's just easier for me to do in and out like that. You got your amplifier in if you were using a regular guitar amp, and set your impedance of the guitar amp. Got your speaker out, 1 and 2. Got a ground lift, which is really nice. And it's cool that you can mismatch your impedance loads with this thing. With my hot plate, it's a 16 ohm hot plate, so you have to have, ideally you would have to have the amp set to a 16 ohm output setting, and your cabinet would also need to be 16 ohms. And for the Nitro, which I purchased it originally for, that's not a problem, but my Mark V does not have a 16 ohm output, so I have to use 8 ohms, which is technically safe, but not ideal. You lose a little bit of power and punch and all that. Also, this thing has a line in, and that's coming from the Kemper's headphone output, so the signal from the Kemper is coming in here to this line in, and it also has a line out if you want to run to a PA, DI box, whatever. And that's about it. It's fairly self-explanatory. There's those 6L6s, and you guys saw that earlier in the video of what those look like inside. I did add the clips to it because I'm a little bit weird and kind of overly protective about that kind of stuff. It didn't ship with the clips to hold the tubes in. I had a spare set, so I tossed those on there to hold them in a little bit more secure, just because if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and with my luck, those tubes would somehow loosen themselves during travel. Even though they were really tight in those sockets, I still didn't want to leave anything up to chance. So that's kind of what it's all about here. Really simple, really cool. So yeah, thanks for watching.